go.
Okay, so I want to be talking about psychoanalysis, and the book I read was The Secret Speech by Tom Robb-Smith. And so we did read the first book in this trilogy, Child 44. This is the second book and it expands on it. So before I start, I want to give you a brief summary of The Secret Speech. So it still follows Leo and Reza, and they're trying to raise their family with the two adopted kids, Zoya and Elaine, from the parents who were murdered in the first book. And through the entire book, one of the daughters, Zoya, the older one, hates Leo for causing the death of her parents and tries to run away, essentially. So the book takes place during like the fall of communism. Leo used to work for the KGB, but now he works for his own like branch of the government, which he started called the it's like a murder investigation. And so he runs that with like one other person, and it's really secret because during communism there's supposed to be no murders, like we discovered in the first book. So what kicks off the action in the book is that some former KGB agents are being murdered because there's a speech that's revealed to everyone, or there's like a manifesto or like a proclamation of all of the murders and misconduct of the government. And so it kind of starts the fall of communism by pointing out all of Stalin's problems. And so the whole book is basically a huge action-packed story of Leo trying to get back Zoya after she essentially runs away to join the conspirators or the people that wrote the speech to bring down the fall of communism. And so I thought I'd read up on psychoanalysis and everything, like so I could figure out everything it took for Leo to be able to go through everything he did to get back his daughter. And so what Leo basically does is the leader of the gang that Zoya runs away to, she was the victim of Leo's first arrest, where she arrested her and her husband is sent to a gulag, and Leo has to go undercover as a prisoner in the gulag to break him out to bring her back to the gang leader to get back Zoya. So what we learned is that family is a huge motivator, and so I decided to look up different kinds of motivation in different schools of psychoanalytic thought. And so what I discovered is there are two types of motivation. There's intrinsic and extrinsic. And intrinsic motivation is it's kind of like your own inner monologue, like your own what you feel is right, like what you're good at. And so like in the case of schooling, like if I'm really good at English, I'll have my own desire to read. And this kind of motivation, it flourishes under liberty, so like your own doing, like your own curiosity. And this kind of motivation is found in younger people, and it's discovered that through the grades that they're growing up, you lose your intrinsic motivation, but you gain more extrinsic motivation, which is you see like everything you're doing as a payoff for the future. And there's different kinds of extrinsic motivation. So with like the very lowest level, being like you're kind of like the least interested, would be you're saying it just because you have to do it because you'll be punished if you don't. Like in a school setting, it would be you need to get an A because your parents won't let you do something. And then the highest level being you realize that you need to get an A because it'll pay off and it corresponds to your values of like you need to be a contributing member of society. And so those are two kinds of motivation. And then I went on to look up into like schools of thought, and there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so basically this hierarchy of needs says you need to start with the lowest level and build your way up to the top, and you'll become self-actualized, which means that you'll discover like your fullest potential if you meet everything else below it. And so you don't necessarily start from one and go to the other, and then once you meet all your needs, you become self-actualized. It's more you need to constantly meet all these needs, but you do kind of have to start from the lowest one, being psychological. So meaning you need to have food, water, sleep, to go through everything else. And then there's safety, which means you need shelter, and like with your psychological, you need food. And then there's love and belonging. So after you have shelter and food, you need to have a family or a sense of community. Esteem would be like you're respected in your workplace, like you contribute. And self-actualization is you you've developed your morals and you have everything, and so you kind of have your own liberty to pursue what you want to do. And so Maslow's hierarchy of needs is important to this book because we all desire, like, so Leo, his whole motivators in the book are keeping his family together. So he's already met like the first two levels of the hierarchy, but he needs to be loved within his family. He thinks that if he can't keep Zoya as a daughter, then Asa will no longer want to stay with him, and their love is challenged in the book. And there's a few other characters in the book, like the leader of the gulag that Leo does go to break out the husband of the arrested person. He needs belongingness and esteem, so the reason why he runs the gulag the way he does is so he'll be respected among his peers, and that is obviously challenged when Leo is there because he has to break everyone out. So he has actually a full-on meltdown, and then along with the fall of communism, the leader is struggling, everyone really in the government is struggling to know if like this is a test or not of communism, like if this is just employed by the government to see who truly follows. And so everyone has their own internal struggle of whether they should keep up their relentless practice, or if they should be like sorry, or they should be afraid of what would happen next. And so another school of psychoanalytic thought is behaviorism, and behaviorism focuses on that there is no moral compass, rather people are conditioned to live the way they do. And so I thought this was interesting because like under communism everyone is kind of unified, but under some like very scary pretenses, and people don't necessarily believe things are good or bad, but this has to be done. So behaviorism sees morals as kind of like a neutral standpoint. So you can condition someone into thinking things are okay. So like a lot of the government agents believe that what they're doing is for the betterment of everyone in Russia. So that's essentially the school of the thought of behaviorism and why people act the way they do. So in communism, it kind of justifies all the actions they do to the prisoners, and it's to keep the peace. And then I studied a specific, he's a French political philosopher. His name is Pierre Manet, and he saw that there were three prime motivators for everyone, and it's the need to meet, or like every action is based on being pleasant, useful, or fair. So like the way people live, it kind of coincides with behaviorism. The reason why we do things is either because it's pleasant, useful, or fair, and these three have to be balanced. And so he talked specifically about how communism, it only emphasized the fairness between everyone, well, even though like, people were treated terribly, but it was in the name of fairness, and that's why communism was so wrong, because we as a moral agent are raised kind of in a behaviorist style, and we learn to balance each one of these factors of our decisions. So communism fell because it was only emphasizing the fairness, and when they stopped caring what was pleasant or useful, it damaged the society as a whole. And I used all of those to study and write my paper about the book.